The next type of tiering that I would recommend doing is one that I really love, is tiering by multiple intelligences. I'll put that right there. When you think of multiple intelligence, you probably already are thinking about Howard Gardner and his 8 multiple intelligence. Here's how you should do this. Imagine your wall in your classroom, 8 boards representing 8 multiple intelligences. 1 board per multiple intelligence. Now imagine this. Each one of those boards has at least a minimum of 4 activities based on that particular intelligence. For example, logical mathematical. For example, intrapersonal, interpersonal. So, and the list goes on and on, okay? So you can take this and provide choice. And what Lucas would do is he would go to one of the 8 multiple intelligences, and we had his name already on the activities that he could choose, because we've already co-planned for Lucas. So he would get to choose what he wanted to do on that day based on the 8 multiple intelligences. At this point, I want you to digest this wonderful information, if you think it is wonderful, and think about a question to ask me. And this applies to you also out listening in Tennessee. If you have a question, I would take a question now. Anybody in class would like to ask a question about anything? David has a question.
How well does tiering work with the standard set by No Child Left Behind?
David has brought in the Nickleby question. No Child Left Behind. How does tiering work with No Child Left Behind? Well, as you all probably know, No Child Left Behind looks at high quality teaching, and I think it would be a perfect fit, because now we're asking teachers to think different, to reach and teach all students. And now when we reach and teach all students, David, what happens? All test scores are going to go up. And that's what I think is going to happen with this initiative. And inclusion would fit right into it. And also there's another word out there, David, that we did not talk about today, which is RTI. How many of you heard that word before? Yes, response to intervention. And a lot of you in the audience today are actually going through training on RTI. Okay? When I'm talking about tiering, I'm not talking about RTI. They have some relationship, but it's not RTI. Okay? So to answer your question, David, I think it would be a perfect fit, because we are going to leave no child left behind, because we are going to include every child in the regular classroom. And with that, research says scores go up. Scores do go up. Okay? Thank you for that question. And feel free to ask any other questions you might have today. Okay? Let's take a look at the next type of tiering. It's called tiering by characteristics, and all you need to know here is basically you're going to do some type of grouping here, where you're going to group students into clusters. And I'm not going to spend too much time on that particular one. And in each tier, basically, you might have 2 groups in tier 1. You might have 3 groups in tier 2. You might even have 2 students in tier 3. Okay? That's tiering by clustering. There's another one that's not on this list that I want to share with you. It's tiering according to Bloom's taxonomy. Can we do that? Yeah, absolutely. I just thought about that this morning. I said, hey, I need to share this stuff. Yeah, knowledge level all the way up to analysis and synthesis. Yes, beautiful. We can also tier according to the HOTS, H-O-T-S. HOTS, higher order thinking skills. Yes, and moving students through that pyramid of getting them to think critically. And you can tier assignments in all different ways. So I just want, the purpose of today's talk was to invite you to this new approach, was to let you know that there is a thing called tiering, and it's the best kept secret. It's now no longer a secret. Let's take a look at the steps involved in tiering. You probably at this point ask, so Dr. Khan, how do we do this? How do we get this monster off our desk? Let's take a look. I'm going to give you a recipe, and it's my recipe, step by step. Here we go. First one is obviously you need to identify the subject matter that you're going to teach. You need to be knowledgeable in it, and you need to also understand what grade level you are teaching, because you need to know, if you're teaching language arts, you need to know all of your language art materials that support your instruction, because you're going to be tiering with that understanding. The next thing, very, very important, is that tiering must not happen by itself. you must align to national, state, and local standards. Now I'm going to pause on number 2, and I want you to take a deep breath in and think about what I'm saying about 1 and 2, steps 1 and 2. I think we have a question, and this is great. Lots of participation today. Go ahead with your question. Okay, I'm listening. Okay. All right. I think I might have answered that. All right. Moving right along, if you do feel you need to call back, feel free to call back. It might have been disconnection of the line. Sometimes it does happen. The next thing you need to do is identify the big idea. That's step number 3. What is that big idea in your lesson? What is that big idea in your lesson? What is it exactly you're targeting? And to answer that question, write this down. WIFM, W-I-F-M. What's in it for me? This is the question your student is going to be asking of this lesson. What's of value? What's going to engage me? What's in it for me? W-I-F-M. Number 4, it's very important that you consider prior knowledge. And to do prior knowledge, you must do what is called pre-testing, and all good teachers do pre-testing. The next thing you will also need to know is that you need to consider curriculum compacting. It's no use teaching a gifted child something they already know. And curriculum compacting simply means that if your students know the stuff at least 80% well, you should not teach it. And that's called curriculum compacting. So you need to do some pre-testing and pre-assessment. Your 5th step, folks, going down the list, is when you are tiering, consider whether you want to tier the entire lesson. This is very important. Yes, do you want to do tiering for the entire lesson? There's also a part where you can also tier just for a component. One small part of your lesson can be tiered. You do not have to tier every lesson. You can also go just for a small part in your tiering. Okay? The next step number 6, determine the type of tiering you will do and have a rationale for doing it. Have a rationale for doing it. So I've given you close to about 4 to 5 different models, haven't I? Let's go through them again. The first one was a readiness, tiering for readiness. Next one was learning profile.